Welcome. I am in a slightly different position. You can see my recording stuff behind me, but I'm here at my table today because I figured while I'm working on some things for my event, why not just flip on the camera and have like a quick conversation with you that's not scripted and just kind of a work with me as I work on some of the projects that I am creating for my event that's coming up. So, what I wanted to do is really quickly kind of give you an introduction to who I am across all my different platforms, understand my why, my purpose, and then give you the rundown of my event that's coming up. So, as I'm doing this, I am working. I have my materials here, and you got fresh face, Krys, today. I actually went and did a self care day, and one part of that self care day was getting a facial. I wanted to honor my skin by continuing to let it breathe without makeup. I'm pretty sure I'm looking shiny. And also, my lighting may be a little bit off, mainly because it's pouring raining outside, which I am grateful for because if you're in Texas or you're anywhere around that's been extremely hot, you know that it's been a while since we had rain. And so I'm so grateful for the rain. So, some of you may know me from my Uniquely Noble platform, which Uniquely Noble came about as a blog. I actually started it back in, I think, 2009, 2010. And this is back when everybody was still blogging on Blogspot. So that's how old it was. And so I started blogging there. I blogged here and there. I wasn't very consistent with it between 2009, 2010. Then I picked up again around 2013 when I had my first child, and then kind of died down again. And so in 2019, I experienced my mental health crisis. And as a part of that recovery, I went and I did an intensive outpatient treatment. And that's important because that was actually the catalyst for me to get the courage to do something that I've been wanting to do for a while, which was finish my blog or continue to blog. And in addition, a jumpstart to a thought or a business that I had thought about for a while. And so as a result, I decided in 2019 that I would evolve my blog into more than just a blog. I wanted to start a business, and that business would create content, events, and retreats that focus on self love, self care, mental health, all those things. And so, 2019, like I said, I transitioned my blog into a business. And then from there, I started and hosted my very first launch event. And then from there, that end of that year, I went ahead and hosted my first event. It went well. I got great feedback. And so I was excited to get ready to start hosting my new events coming up for 2020. And we all know what happened in 2020. So, of course, with the onset of the pandemic, I was not able to host in person events, but I didn't want to lose traction or steam of what I was doing. And so I decided to partner with people that I plan on hosting in person events with. And we hosted a few virtual events. And so as I'm editing to this, I may go ahead and pop up a couple of the flyers so you can see some of the things that I have done in the past that are all centered around either self-love, mental health, or any of those things. And so 2019, I did the launch of my blog. 2020, launch of my business. And then 2020, I did some other things. Now, also in 2020, I will note that I had the idea to start a podcast. And I initially started that podcast, and it was going to be audio only, recorded a few episodes. But as life would have it, I started to experience some challenges in life, mainly with my health. And so I had to take a step aside and handle those things over the next essentially 2 to 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. And so here I am again in 2023. I relaunched my blog / website, and I am looking forward to hosting more events with my Uniquely Noble. And as many of you know, if you follow me on my Unique Conversations with Krys, my podcast, I launched that in May of this year. And so this event that I'm actually doing things for is basically a mashup of Uniquely Noble by Unique Conversations with Krys. So it's taking two of the things that I have really poured a lot into and combining those together. So I will take the theme, the idea, the feel of my Uniquely Noble events, and then bringing my podcast together and pretty much putting them all to one event. And so the idea is that this event will introduce the people that follow me on my podcast to my Uniquely Noble brand and vice versa. So that's the idea. So now I'm talking about the event. What exactly is the event? So like I said, I am taking the thought and the feel of Uniquely Noble and combining it with my podcast. If you've watched any of them, you'll see the style of podcast that I have. And so what I'll plan on doing is, for the event, I will invite some of the same guests that I had in my first season. So you had Chandra, who shared her story of how she learned to choose herself and talks about how she woke up one day and realized that the marriage that she was in was not the right one for her, how she got the courage to make the shift and the transition and the pivot in her life despite of her fears. And then also how other gems of wisdom that she's learned along her journey. And then we had the conversation with Ashley, who is a veteran who shared her story about how she's learning to live with PTSD, surviving narcissistic abuse, as well as how she learned to be so resilient despite of all the things that she faced and challenges that she faced with being a veteran, a woman veteran, challenges that she's experienced with being a single parent, being in relationships that were abusive. And so I have that. She's coming to talk about in depth about her story. And then we also had Kimberly the counselor. Kimberly was the first subject matter expert that I invited on. I invited Kimberly the counselor as a subject matter expert because she has insight and advice that I don't have or can't give because I'm not a mental health professional. But I felt like it would be good to ask her some of the questions that I've heard either in conversation of my own or questions that I had at the beginning of my journey. And so I'm inviting her to join the panel as an expert so that way she can weigh in on some of the topics and conversations that may come up that I am not able to answer from a professional perspective. I am only able to answer from the perspective of someone who's lived through those things. So, and my story is very specific and unique to me. So, and then we also have Shayna. Shayna was one of the stories that left me speechless. And so I don't know if you've watched that episode, but she endured a lot in her life and a lot of challenges. And if you read her book, that's even more in there. And so with her story, she has so much wisdom and so many things that are inspiring that I feel like she would add so much to the she adds so much perspective and rounds out the group as far as experiences in life. And so she will be joining us as well. And then of course you have me. And so we will have a panel roundtable style discussion, and I will moderate and ask the questions just like I would on my podcast. And the only thing that's going to be different is that I'll have you guys there. You guys will have the opportunity to either comment, ask questions, share your own journey or experiences. And so I'm really looking forward to that opportunity to have a full-fledged conversation instead of us having a conversation with me and the guest and engaging you in that conversation. So that's what the overall gist of the event is. And so the event will start off with us enjoying some great food. And having the opportunity to network with myself and the other panel members, as well as one another. So just to kind of get everybody, introduced and feeling good. And then we'll transition into the area to where we'll actually have the panel slash podcast interview type style session. And so from there, we will have a conversation until it's time to end until it's time to end the event. Of course, I'm oversimplifying. There'll be different things and different segments, but that's just the overall gist. And so, as a person that attends the event, you will get a bag, like a little swag bag for the event. So things that will help you specifically. This notebook being one of them, and then also you'll also go home with something that comes from my idea and offerings that I have under Uniquely Noble, a self-care box. And so these things in the self-care box have either been things that I created myself. As you see, I'm a very hands-on person, and I like to create and do things that have special meaning to them. Or there are things that I've picked from a specific experience or an event based on what I like. So this box will be something that will allow you to take the feeling and the vibe from the event and take it home with you so that you can practice self-care, reinforce some of the tips and tricks for mental health that we'll talk about, as well as just something that you can go home and feel good and have your tangible gift from me for attending. So the whole theme and what I want to reinforce behind the event is I want to connect, cultivate, and converse. So I want us to connect with one another. And by connecting with one another allows us to build a community of individuals that feels like we have a rapport with one another, that allows each person to feel like they're seen and valued and heard, which is important. What you've heard over the course of my podcast is something very important that I've learned over the course of my journey is not only that we cannot do this alone, but having a community of people behind us that have similar values or beliefs is not something that we can be easily replaced. So that's why it's important for us to get together and connect. Then we have cultivate. So by connecting, I want to cultivate in a safe environment for healing and having those hard discussions and having those heart-to-heart things to where we can feel really connected to one another and cultivate a place where we can inspire growth, healing, and change. And then converse. Of course, converse by sharing experiences and stories that reinforce the other topics, the connection and the cultivate. So that is the whole theme and idea behind the event. I think that I have covered everything that I wanted to cover for that event. Feel free to reach out with me for any questions that you may have. There's still opportunity to buy tickets. There's still some available. If you take advantage and if you watch this, you can go to Eventbrite. I put a promo code out there so that if you miss the early bird ticket specials, then you can take advantage of the coupon that I released. I believe it was on the 1st. And so that it'll still get some of a discount. But I appreciate you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you at my event, and feel free to reach out with any questions. And until then, have a good one.